All right, so we're diving deep into putter weights today, and we're looking at some really interesting research by Henrik Jentsch and Paul Jordan. And these guys, they went all out. They used a putting robot, they brought in real golfers, and they even used high-speed cameras to really capture everything. So by the end of this deep dive, you're going to have like a whole new understanding of what those little adjustable weights on your putter can actually do for your game.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what they were able to find out about those weights.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond just like the feel of the putter.
Right. And I think a lot of golfers, they kind of dismiss those weights like they're just a marketing gimmick or something.
Right. And but it turns out
Yeah.
they can have a pretty big impact on your putting.
Yeah. So where do we even start with this? Like, there are so many different ways to configure those weights. What did the researchers focus on first?
Well, one of the first things they looked at was just the overall weight of the putter head. So like how heavy is the putter head in general?
Okay.
And they found that just adding weight in general actually led to a higher impact ratio.
Impact ratio. Okay. I'll admit that sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah, it's not as complicated as it sounds.
Okay, good.
So think of it like this. Imagine you're throwing a baseball.
Okay.
If you throw a heavier ball with the same amount of force, it's going to travel farther right.
Right. Yeah, because it's heavier.
Exactly. There's more energy behind it. So impact ratio is basically measuring how efficiently the energy from your putter gets transferred to the golf ball.
Ah, okay. So it's like how much of that energy from my swing is actually going into moving the ball forward.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so they found that adding weight to the putter head can actually increase that impact ratio.
Wow. So you're saying like if I add weight to my putter head, I could actually get more distance on my putts with the same effort.
It's definitely possible. They found that a putter with a 28% weight increase had the highest impact ratio.
28%. Wow, that's significant.
Yeah, it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. Okay, so we know that the overall weight matters, but what about like where that weight is placed? Does it make a difference if the weight is more towards the heel or the toe of the putter?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's where things get even more interesting. They started by testing putters that were what they called front-loaded, meaning they added weight to the front of the putter head.
Okay, so like closer to the face.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they found that front weighting had a pretty noticeable impact on a few key things, specifically the putter's attack angle at impact.
Okay, hold on. Let's not get too technical too quickly here.
Sure.
What exactly is attack angle? Like, am I picturing a golfer charging at the ball with their putter?
Haha, not quite,
Mhm.
but I like the image. So imagine a line going straight up from the ground, right where your ball is sitting.
Okay.
The attack angle is simply the angle between your putter face
Mm-hmm.
and that imaginary vertical line when you strike the ball.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's like whether you're hitting up on the ball or down on the ball. Okay, so front weighting affects that angle. What else did they find out about front weighting?
Well, in addition to the attack angle,
Yeah.
it also affected the shaft angle at impact.
Shaft angle.
Yeah, that's basically how much the shaft is leaning forward or backward when the putter hits the ball.
Okay.
And they also found that front weighting had an impact on the launch angle of the ball,
Launch angle, okay.
which is basically the angle at which the ball takes off after you hit it.
So just by like moving some weight around on the putter head, you can actually change how the putter face hits the ball, how the
Okay.
shaft leans, and even how the ball launches off the face.
That's right.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and they also found that front weighting actually increased the distance the ball skidded before it started to roll smoothly.
Interesting. You know, I've always struggled with getting my putts to roll consistently. I feel like they sometimes skid too much right after I hit them.
Hmm.
Do you think adjusting the weight forward could actually help with that?
It's definitely possible. By influencing the attack angle and potentially reducing that initial skid, you might be able to achieve a smoother and more consistent roll.
Okay, I'm definitely going to have to experiment with that. Now, we've talked a lot about front weighting, but what happens when you add weight to the back of the putter head?
Well, that's where things got a little surprising. They found that adding weight to the back had almost no effect on any of the measurements they were tracking.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the putter didn't even register that extra weight back there.
So back weighting is a bust, but front weighting has some serious potential.
It seems that way.
This is fascinating stuff.
So we've seen how adding weight in general can impact your putts. But it gets even more interesting when we start looking at where that weight is placed on the putter head.
Right, like we were just talking about front weighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the researchers also looked at what happens when you place weight specifically in the heel versus the toe.
Okay, yeah, I've heard golfers argue about heel and toe weighting for years. Does this research finally tell us, like, definitively which one is better?
Well, it doesn't exactly settle the debate once and for all,
Hmm.
but it does give us some really valuable insights. They found that heel weighting consistently led to more hook spin.
Hook spin.
Yeah, so that left to right curve that you sometimes see on a putt.
Okay.
And toe weighting had the opposite effect. It either decreased that hook spin or even created a slight cut to the right.
Interesting. So let me get this straight. If I'm constantly pushing my putts to the right, maybe adding a little weight to the heel could help me get those putts back on target.
Yeah, it's definitely worth experimenting with. Remember we talked about that seesaw analogy earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, it applies here too. When you add weight to the heel, it shifts the balance of the putter head ever so slightly.
Right.
And that influences how the putter face makes contact with the ball.
So it's like you're subtly changing the direction the putter face is pointing at impact.
So-
Okay, that makes sense. So heel weighting for more hook spin, toe, waiting for less hook spin, or even a cut spin. What else did they find out about heel and toe weighting?
Well, they actually took it a step further, and they tried what they called extreme weighting.
Extreme weighting.
Yeah, basically they maxed out the weight in each slot individually. So like all the weight in the heel or all the weight in the toe.
Oh, wow.
And that really allowed them to isolate the effects of each position.
So they were like pushing those weights to the limit.
Yeah, and that's when they saw the most dramatic differences in the amount of side spin.
So basically they were confirming that those little weights can actually make a big difference in the direction of your putts.
Exactly. It's not just marketing hype.
This is really cool stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and you know, we've been talking a lot about the mechanics and the physics of putting, but we can't forget about one of the most important aspects of the game, and that's feel.
Right. Every golfer knows that feeling when you pick up a putter and it just feels right in your hands.
Exactly, and that's where the concept of swing weight comes in.
Swing weight. Okay. Another one of those golf terms that I hear all the time, but I'm not always sure I fully understand.
Yeah, it could be a bit confusing. But basically, swing weight describes how heavy the putter feels in your hands throughout your entire putting stroke.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is that the researchers found that a huge range of swing weights could be achieved simply by adjusting those putter weights.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, they found that 37 different swing weights could be achieved just by moving those little weights around.
37.
That's right.
Wow, that's amazing. It's no wonder golfers can be so picky about how their putters feel.
Yeah, those tiny adjustments can make a surprisingly big difference.
So we've got overall weight, we've got heel-toe weighting, and now we've got swing weight. Is there anything else those little weights can affect?
You bet there is. They also have an effect on two other key aspects of a putter, face balance and toe hang.
Okay, those are two terms that I always hear. But I've got to admit, they've always been kind of a mystery to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of golfers feel that way. So let's try to break it down.
Please.
So face balance is all about how the putter face naturally sits when it's at rest.
Okay.
Some putters have what's called toe hang,
Right.
where the toe of the putter points down when you hold it horizontally.
Okay.
Others are more face balanced, meaning the face points straight up.
Gotcha.
And you know what they found? Toe weighting led to more toe hang, and heel weighting resulted in less toe hang or even a toe up position.
Okay, so by adjusting the weights, you can actually change the toe hang of your putter.
Exactly. And that can have a big impact on how the putter face squares up to the ball at impact.
Okay, this is where I need you to explain it to me. Like I'm a 5-year-old.
Sure. So imagine this. A putter with a lot of toe hang is going to want to rotate or close slightly. During your putting stroke,
Right.
a face-balanced putter, on the other hand, is going to resist that rotation.
Ah, I see. So if I tend to pull my putts, meaning the ball goes to the left, maybe a more face-balanced putter would help me keep that face square at impact. And if I'm pushing my putts, a putter with more toe hang might help me get the face rotating closed.
That's right.
Wow, this is incredible. So those little weights, they really can fine-tune how our putter behaves.
They really can.
It's like they're giving us a whole new level of control.
Yeah, and it really highlights the importance of getting your putter properly fitted.
Right, because it's not just about finding a putter that looks good or feels good. It's about finding one that actually works with your stroke.
Exactly. And these adjustable weights give fitters a lot more tools to fine-tune that putter to your individual needs.
Now, I do remember reading that this particular study focused mainly on mallet putters, which are those larger, more rounded putters.
Right.
What about those of us who prefer the classic blade putters?
That's a great question. And it's one that the research didn't specifically address,
Okay.
so we can't say for sure how these principles would apply to blade putters.
It would be interesting to see a similar study done with blade putters,
Absolutely.
because I'm sure there are some differences in how those putters behave.
Yeah, I mean, blade putters have the different weight distribution,
Yeah.
so it's logical to assume that they might react differently to these weight adjustments.
Right. Okay, so let's say I've already got a putter that I love, and it's got those adjustable weights. Am I like stuck with whatever configuration it came with? Or can I actually use this information to tweak things myself?
Absolutely not. You're not stuck at all.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the beauty of adjustable weights.
Yeah.
They give you the power to experiment and find what works best for you.
So what's your advice? Like, how should people approach this?
Well, I think the key is to pay attention to your own putting tendencies.
Okay.
Are you a pusher or puller? Do your putts tend to skid too much?
Right.
Think about the things we've discussed. And then try making small adjustments based on what you've learned.
So it's like a trial and error process?
It can be, yeah, but that's part of the fun.
Right.
You might be surprised at what you discover.
I love that. It's like we're not just golfers anymore, we're putter scientists.
Exactly.
This has been so insightful. I think we've really busted some myths about those little weights.
Yeah, they're definitely more than just a marketing gimmick.
They can really make a difference in our putting game.
Absolutely.
But we haven't even touched on the mental side of putting yet. And we all know how much our minds can affect our performance on the green.
Oh yeah, the mental game is huge in putting.
Like, sometimes I feel like I'm my own worst enemy out there.
I think we all feel that way sometimes.
It's like, you can have the perfect putter, the perfect stroke, but if your head's not in the game, it's all for nothing.
Yeah, the mental side of putting is huge. I mean, we've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Standing over a crucial putt, and you can just feel the pressure mounting.
Oh, yeah.
And then your hands start to get shaky.
Yeah.
And your heart's racing.
And then you miss the putt.
Exactly.
So how do we, combat that? How do we get our minds right for putting?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think this research on putter weighting
Mm-hmm.
actually offers some interesting insights.
Okay, how so?
Well, we've talked about how these weight adjustments can change the physics of your stroke, right?
Okay, right.
But they can also have a really powerful impact on your confidence and your perception.
Yeah. So you're saying it's not just about the mechanics.
No, it's not just about the mechanics. It's about how those mechanics make you feel.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So imagine this. You're on the putting green, and you're struggling with a push.
Oh, okay.
So you decide to add a little weight to the heel of your putter,
Right.
because you know that's going to help you square the face at impact.
Right.
Now, even if that weight adjustment
Mm-hmm.
only makes a tiny difference in the physics of your stroke, the fact that you've made that change and you believe it's going to help you,
Yeah.
that can have a huge impact on your confidence.
Ah, okay. So it's like a placebo effect, but for putting.
Exactly. You believe in the change.
Mm.
And that belief actually helps you putt better.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And it's not just about the weight adjustments themselves. It's about the whole process of putter fitting.
Yeah.
Taking the time to analyze your stroke, to understand the mechanics, and to really dial in your equipment. All of that can contribute to a more confident and consistent putting stroke.
It's like you're taking control of your game
Exactly.
instead of just letting it control you.
I like that.
So we've talked about the physics. We've talked about the mental game. Is there anything else we need to consider when it comes to putter weighting?
Well, one thing that I found really interesting in this research was that the stroke path, whether it was straight back and through or a slight arc, didn't actually have a significant impact on the results.
Really?
Yeah, at least not for the standard mallet putter that they used in the study.
So does that mean that the putter itself is somehow compensating for those differences in stroke path?
It's possible. I mean, it suggests that those little weight adjustments might be helping to smooth out our putting stroke.
Without us even realizing it.
Exactly.
Wow, this is really making me rethink my whole approach to putting.
I know. It's pretty eye-opening stuff.
So what's the takeaway here? What should our listeners do with this information?
Well, I think the most important thing is to approach your putting with a sense of curiosity
Okay.
and a willingness to experiment.
Don't be afraid to tinker.
Exactly. Try different weight configurations. See how they feel. Pay attention to how those adjustments impact your stroke.
And don't forget about the mental side of things, too.
Right. How do those adjustments make you feel more confident, more in control.
Yeah, I love that.
It's all about finding that perfect combination
Yeah.
of mechanics and mindset.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of putter weights. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
My pleasure.
And for our listeners out there, don't be afraid to experiment. Find what works best for you and keep those putts rolling true.